What's going on, everybody? It's Trifecta J here, and today we have the recap of the Season 3 offseason for the South Dakota Dynasty. I streamed the offseason this past Saturday. It's a little less than 2 hours, and if you want more detailed information and everything, I would definitely check that out. But of course, we did go 3-9 this year, equaling the win total of Season 1 and Season 2. Christian Vaughn, in his first year, did pretty well, I thought. There were a lot of tough games though, but I think this team continues to improve and will continue to do so as we move forward. But a 3-9 season, definite areas of improvement we made this year, but we will now head into the actual off season. If you wanted to see more stats and everything like that, a whole look at our recruiting class, I would check out the recap video I did. But we move forward now to the coaching changes and the players leaving. So in the Mountain West, Mike McIntyre is the new DC at Boise State, a new DC at New Mexico, a lot of extensions though throughout the entire conference. John Stiegelmeier gets one at South Dakota State, Rocky Long still at South Dakota State, Utah State fires their entire coaching staff, North Dakota fires their whole coaching staff. One thing I would like to note, for the first time I believe in this series, our entire coaching staff will return. All of our coordinators are back. Keyshawn Lindley and Brandon Hall will be returning. So for the first time, we'll have some continuity, which will be really nice to see. Now we'll look just quickly around the whole college football world and see some of the coaching changes. Mark D'Antonio retires. Josh Heupel is now the OC at Oklahoma. Lane Kiffin is the new head coach at West Virginia. So Bob Nielsen retains his job as the West Virginia defensive coordinator. Jimbo Fisher has been fired at A&M and replaced. And we go to players leaving now. We start off with Michael Long. He was developmental left tackle for us, good run blocker, but he's decided to transfer. He's not a superb athlete, but has really good acceleration. I thought he would be a nice developmental guy, but he wants to leave and will be heading to Utah State, so most likely we will see him at some point. A look at the rest of the roster. We had 21 seniors graduating. Pierce Libby, Nate Went, Deion Gilbert, Cooper Price, Tate Wagner, a few offensive linemen, including a starter at right guard in Noah Johnston. The numbers a little deceiving with 21 players graduating, as a lot of those players were backups, but it is still depth that we're losing, along with some really key players. Noah Johnston I thought was a really good run blocker for us, Pedro Martels and Zachary Stidisi, so we lose both of our defensive tackles who played last year. Martels was one of our more disruptive defensive linemen. Then in the linebacker core, we don't actually lose any starters, which is definitely nice to see, so we will return Sylvia and McCray and then Jackson Harvey, but we do lose our number 1 and 3 corners in Xavier Warner and Sean Saldana, so that will be a big loss, but I think we've done a good job in replacing the corners that we're losing, and then Trevon Simmons, who was a big impact player for us. North Dakota State has a smaller graduating class this year, but they do lose their best player by far in Winston Zenner. He decided to declare for the draft and is projected to be a 4th round pick. In recruiting, we only had one spot coming into the offseason. Michael Long transferring opens up another one. Deron Covington was by far my number 1 choice. You can see by 8,000 points going into him. He's a really good run stopper. He's a big nose tackle and a tough competition with the Virginia Tech, so I did not want to miss out on him. And then Zayshawn Jones, wanted to get more depth at corner. He's not super big, not super fast, but I think with time he could develop, and he was one of the easier players for us to get. So now we head into signing day. A number of players here don't actually go anywhere. So you can see Devin Robinson, Adam Mixon Jr., Eddie Lewis, and Ryan Anderson go to South Dakota State and North Dakota respectively, but we do get Deron Covington and Zayshawn Jones. So I'm really happy with how this recruiting class turned out. I think we got a lot of impact players, nice developmental guys who have really good potential. Deron Covington will be a day 1 starter for us, and I have really high hopes for him. And then Aiden Larson goes to Michigan State, and that would have been a tough battle to win. He was the other guy I was considering along with Zayshawn Jones, but we already had 4 other offensive linemen committed, so I didn't feel like it was quite as big of a need. You can see the locations of all the prospects that we got, once again in that tight border area, and then one off to the East Coast in Canada but I do consider Canada to be one of our pipeline states. Now you can see we do finish with the 126th recruiting class. I think that's a little off in my opinion. I think we have a better recruiting class than probably a number of teams around us, just based on star rating. It isn't a super highly regarded class, but I think we have a lot of impact players. And now real quickly, we'll look at the top prospects in the class, all the 5 stars. Trevon Burrell, he's the number 1 player in the country. He looks to be a future NFL superstar, and he goes to Minnesota. Cincinnati, who's been one of the best programs in this series so far. They went 13-1 last year, and then 14-0 in season 3. Luke Fickell is still their head coach. He hasn't decided to move on, and they get a 5-star prospect. A 5-star tight end goes to Illinois. And now moving forward to some quick position changes, I did a little rearranging along the offensive line and then a little along the defensive line. So Trey Thomas, he is a linebacker, but I think his best future is at right end. He has a really good finesse move, some good athleticism. Deion Perkins gets moved to middle linebacker. Quintez Stevenson to free safety. Rayshawn Brailsford goes to linebacker as an outside linebacker as well. But now we will move forward out of position changes and into training results. This is one of the most fun parts of the offseason, as we now have 2 80 overall players on this roster. The first 2 that we've had in this series, in Deontay Knox and Bo Weaver. I think Deontay Knox is poised for a really big senior season, especially with the question marks surrounding him at receiver. Outside of him, we have Jacoby Patton and then Phoenix McDonald, along with a couple other names, but none of them have actually played before. Combined, all of our other receivers have caught 2 passes in their career. But we're going to go through a quick position by position breakdown on the training results. A +5 for Jalen Tate, which was great to see. He gets a little faster, a little better at breaking tackles and just as a runner. And then in terms of throwing ratings, he now has by far the strongest arm, gets a nice +4 to his accuracy, and he will be the quarterback of the future. At running back, we return Jalen Page and Dontavius Knight. They both get better as Knight gets even quicker and faster, which is great to see. All of our running backs do. They all have good catching ratings, which is nice to see. Receiver is probably the biggest area of concern for me on this team. Deontay Knox, I don't have any concerns about him. His catching ratings is really good, but he's not a superb athlete. And then outside of him, there's a lot of question marks and who's going to step up and be that next player who can play along with him. But one person who will definitely help out in the receiving area is Cordell Hicks. We do lose Tate Wagner, and he was a really good blocker. That was probably the biggest thing he brought to this team. And Cordell Hicks will be the tight end in all of our sets now. And we need him to improve as a blocker and be able to hold up there if we want to continue to run the ball as well as we did last year. Bo Weaver is our best offensive lineman. He is just massive and maybe potentially could argue he's the best player on this team. Jamie Landry is a pass blocking specialist. His run blocking does get a little bit better though. Jack Sternberg will be back for his senior season. He's still 5'7", so that's definitely a big weakness that won't be changing anytime soon, but is a really good pass blocker. His other ratings aren't superb, but as a pass blocking center, I think he can definitely be a solid player for us. He is 300 pounds, so he has some nice bulk, even though he is really short. But Ben James most likely will be the future at center. We'll have to see if we can move some players around. We recruited a number of offensive linemen, so they're not appearing here. Sonny Hubbard is the only right guard, and he's a run blocking specialist, and it's a really solid trait and something for him to build around. Noah Butler gets stronger, still not super strong or athletic, but his biggest strength, sort of the opposite of Jamie Landry, is he is a really good run blocker. His pass blocking could still use some development, but I think he has a really bright future. I think all of our offensive linemen do really, and 4 of the starters do return, so that's great continuity there. Pass rushing moves, we don't have a lot of it currently. Shado Hansen is the best of our left ends, and his aren't really all that great. I do have hopes for Shedrick Simpson as a pass rusher in the future, and then Tevin Robinson as a senior. Xavier Thomas at left end is more of a run stopper right now, but hopefully he can develop in that area. At defensive tackle, currently the players who get the development aren't super talented. I think Justice O'Connor with a lot more time could be a decent pass rusher and run stopper, sort of a hybrid there, and doing both somewhat well. Sylvia gets even better, gets faster, stronger, hits harder, can rush the passer a little bit better, but still his coverage isn't super great. Deion Perkins gets a +5, which is great to see. Only a +4 for LaDorian McCray, and then a +6 for Tario King, who is a redshirt junior. In the practice that you'll see later, I feel like he made a lot of really big plays, so we may have to try and find a way to get him on the field or sub our linebackers a little more than we have done in the past. Deion Perkins is a good coverage guy, but I do think LaDorian McCray is a better run stopper at this moment. Jackson Harvey is our best cover linebacker right now. Not a great athlete, but continues to get better in all of the areas of his game. Deion Kendrick gets a +5. Trayshawn Toney gets a +6. Terrence Mitchell, who I really like, only gets a +4. But we have a lot more speed now in our cornerback group, which is really nice to see. A lot of guys who are really good at man coverage, so you may see more of an emphasis on that this year. That's definitely Deion Kendrick's biggest area of strength, and Terrence Mitchell's as well. And then Juwan Hooper, who we recruited, really can do everything well. He's not great in press, but we probably won't ask him to do a whole ton of that. Eric Sikowski, he gets a +6 to play rec, so that's up to a 90. Really good man coverage, so you could see us do some cover 1 or cover 0 where our safeties are covering people with his ability to cover in man. Then Ross Bukowski, he is a hard-hitting strong safety. DeMarco Anderson also can hit hard, but Anderson's biggest weakness is he's not super great in coverage. Really can say that for a lot of the defenders on our team. We get to the cutting players portion, and with the way that I structured our recruiting class, we don't actually have to cut anyone, which is great to see. Now a look at our season 4 schedule. So we'll open the season at home against Old Dominion, go on the road for Texas Tech, then at home against UAB, get into Mountain West play against Hawaii, Fresno State, South Dakota State, and end the season on the road at North Dakota. Now a look at our redshirting of players. Both the freshman running backs will be redshirted, all of the freshman receivers. Majority of the freshmen got redshirted. I really like the freshman class that we brought in, but I think a lot of them need time to develop, and I want that extra year of eligibility. One of the few who won't is Deron Covington, and then Joseph Peitlich along the offensive line. He will be the day one starter at right guard. We'll have to see how he holds up. There's also Steven Weichert at left guard currently. They're pretty similar rated, but Weichert is a senior, so we'll just have to see how Joseph Peitlich can hold up. The backup quarterback for this year will be Jalen Tate. I expect him to get really involved in the offense and different formations that will allow him to run the ball, as that is his biggest strength right now. At receiver, Phoenix McDonald and Muhammad Ali Saria, they both do things very differently, but they do things well. Muhammad Ali Saria is a good route runner, but doesn't have any speed. And then Phoenix McDonald has speed, but isn't really a great receiver at this point. So I think you could really see them flip-flop as our slot receiver and 3 wide receiver sets, just depending on what we're going to be asking them to do. Deep routes down the field, that's going to go to Phoenix McDonald. More intermediate plays where we need better hands and better route running, Muhammad Ali Saria should get on the field. But now we'll get into the practice portion of the off-season live stream. I tried this time to get as many of the young players involved. We do get a little bit of a look here at Jalen Page, Jared Miller, Deontay Knox, but then we do move on to see Jalen Tate, some of our other running backs and receivers, along with the different defensive players. But while the practice footage is going, just going to break down the roster really quick and my expectations for season 4. So at quarterback, we return everyone from last year. J.R. Miller now in his 4th season as a starter. We add Jalen Tate, who'll be playing this year, and I expect him to, like I said earlier, have an impact on the offense, different option plays and that type of stuff. I'm not going to ask J.R. Miller to do quite as much of that anymore, and instead Jalen Tate's going to be doing that. Then at running back, Jalen Page and Dontavius Knight return, but we do lose Pierce Libby. My biggest question amongst our running back group is what the distribution's going to look like. How many carries is Jalen Page going to get, especially compared to Dontavius Knight? Is Page going to get 20 carries now a game instead of the about 10 or so he had last year? And then what is Rakeem Boyd's portion of the offense going to look like? LaDorian Bolden, who is our fullback, is he going to be involved as a running back? And that's really my biggest question, because I feel like our running back group is as good, if not better, than it was last year. So that will be a big strength for us, I think, once again. I've said the biggest concern I have for this team is our receiving group. Deontay Knox is back, but outside of that, the only other players who have caught a football is Jacoby Patton, and he caught 2 against Wyoming. So there's a lot of inexperience. I think there is some talent, but there's no real dynamic playmakers, which is something that we have been missing throughout this series, and we still don't really have it. But I do think Jacoby Patton, he has solid hands and should be able to be a nice possession receiver for us. Phoenix McDonald should be able to make some plays downfield. Muhammad Ali Suri is another possession receiver, should be able to make an impact. And I do expect Dontavius Knight, Jalen Page, and Cordell Hicks to all be very involved in the passing game, and that should help take some of the burden off of J.R. Miller and some of our other receivers. Tight end Cordell Hicks is back. Biggest concern with him is blocking. Then along the offensive line, we do return 4 starters, which is great to see, and that'll be a big benefit for us. I think our offensive line was a strength, especially run blocking last year, and the only new addition is Joseph Pitlick. But I feel like as an offensive line as a whole, they definitely got a lot better. Defensive line, Shadow Hansen and Tevin Robinson do return. I think we'll continue to play a lot of 3 lineman sets. We still don't have a lot of depth at defensive tackle, but I think we are a little bit better there this year. So I think you could see a little bit more, and I have really high hopes for Deron Covington. Right now, he's a really good run stopper, and I think with time, he could develop into a really good pass rusher as well. Linebacking core, everyone returns. So you have Sylvia, LaDorian McCray, and Jackson Harvey will all be back. We're going to end off this practice, though. Look at this run by Jalen Tate. And then in the secondary, Xavier Warner is gone, but I think Juwan Hooper is a great replacement for him. And then Eric Sikowski and Ross Bukowski are both back. But I hope you have enjoyed this series so far. It's been a ton of fun to make. If you have, please leave a like down below. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of Season 4 in the South Dakota Dynasty. But I will see you for Week 1. I'm hoping to have it ready sooner than later. Definitely going to take a little time, the off season, and getting everything ready for the start of the season always takes more time than I always expect. But hopefully I can have that up sooner than later. But I will see you for Week 1. I hope you have a great rest of your day.